Wait, where are you speaking to us from right now?
I am from Chile, in Chile right now.
In Chile.
Oh, okay, that's right. I remember that you're going to be remote.
Yes, I work remote, very remote, extremely remote. Yeah, I have plans for going to New York, hopefully by the end of the year. But as of now, I'm at home drinking my warm tea because we're right now leaving the winter, into spring. And our Independence weekend, because we have a whole weekend, is coming up celebrating spring.
We ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right.
Ready to go.
Welcome, everybody. This is the September meeting of the Clinton Hills Kitchen Land Use Committee. I'm going to read the hybrid meeting preamble. Manhattan Community Board 4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will meet both in person and virtually. All community board committee meetings will require an in-person quorum to come to order and conduct business. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Committee members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. We encourage members of the public to join virtually. The MCB4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. Tonight's meeting is still being recorded and is currently live streaming on YouTube. So, welcome everybody. We have 3 agenda items. We're going to have a presentation from the Historic District Council. We're going to have a discussion on our 2025 budget statement of district needs and budget requests. And then I just want to lead a conversation about future work for the committee as we go into the next year. So I'd like to welcome Angel to talk to us a little bit about our new, I'm holding it up so people can see on Zoom, the Historic District Council brochure on Hell's Kitchen, which a lot of members of this committee participated in. I want to particularly thank Brian and Joe for their work on this. And this is a really great resource for us. And Angel, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Hi again. Thank you for having me. So I have a couple of slides that I wanted to share with you about the work, and just to go over a little bit of what we did over the past months. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Good. Yeah. Just this moment though. Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. See it now?
Yeah, that's great. We can see it.
Perfect. So, so as you all know, Hell's Kitchen was part of the 2019 recipients of the Six to Celebrate program, and this is the view of the group, of this beautiful group that we created together, the brochures. These brochures are part of the material that is developed with the groups to sort of highlight the sites that the community deems important to preserve, protect, to create awareness. And the interesting part for me, at least, is the process of sort of deciding which sites we're going to include in this brochure. Requires a lot of discussion about what are we aiming for with this document. So what are the goals for this document? Because of course we cannot include everything we want to. So sorry, apologize. My dogs. So we have 2 formats for this brochure. We originally had only one, and we are now, as of this year, we are implementing a second one. So we have half letter size brochures, which is the one that you guys have on hand. These ones are black and white with one color, and the color indicates the year. So for 2019, we have this coral tone. And we have this 3x4 cards, little cards that are have a QR code for downloading a digital version of this brochure. This aside from the downloadable version that is on ACC's website and the 60 Celebrate website. So the idea is that this little card will be much easier to distribute for groups and will maybe be more, will create like a more attainable, because it's a more affordable also option for groups to hand out. So these are the sites that we discussed. This is like a summary map of everything we talked about during our meetings for the months. So we overall discussed 50 sites overall. So the ones that we have here in purple are the ones that we were able to put in the brochure. There are 30 sites in total. And even though we'll later see that we don't have 30 entries, but we do have 30 sites either mentioned as a single site or included within an entry. So, but overall, we were able to have highlight 30 sites within Hell's Kitchen. The ones that have, and they're in yellow, which are the 20 that we didn't get to include on this brochure because we have limited pages. But are there, the research is done, the information is done, and hopefully in the future, maybe we can have like revisit them and see if we can include them in another format. But it's just, in my opinion, it goes to show you the richness of the neighborhood, the interesting different layers that are there. And that is an ongoing conversation about everything that needs to be protected or highlighted, and their assets that you have. So this is what we ended up having, and this is the front page and the last page. This is a little map that points, it's a suggested route that we discussed. It has 22 entries, and those cover, like I mentioned before, 30 sites that go, we will see further on, different typologies, different architectural styles, etc. So we started out with Patty's Market because we think it's the most, it's sort of the highlight of the work that the community has been done over the years, and with the designation, the recent designation. Then we go over some already designated landmarks and some more historic staples of the community, like the Holy Cross Church. And then we have, during the conversations with the community board, this strategy that is of grouping the buildings for what they are, like the uses, was actually, this is actually unique to the Hell's Kitchen brochure of churches converted to theaters, and this groups West Side Theater, New Dramatist, Actor Studio, St. Clements, and then we have Actors Temple. These are unique to Hell's Kitchen. And the idea of grouping them together is also, although they're not geographically necessarily all together, the idea was to sort of let visitors know that there's like a overall overarching idea behind all of them so they can understand this evolution of the neighborhood, of this layer of history of the neighborhood. Then we have infrastructure converted to theaters, and then we have 2 examples. So there are more examples of this. We just chose to highlight these 2 as the most iconic and easy to identified. The idea is also hopefully that people get interested and decide to do a little more research and start to want to know a little bit more and find new additions to this list. Then we have, of course, brownstones. And then here we mentioned a couple of streets, and the idea so this entry was about streetscapes more than just individual brownstones and individual examples. Heart House, of course. Then we have, again, tenement streetscapes, again, as an idea of naming different streets as examples of different types of streetscapes and styles of tenements and the history of the tenement in the neighborhood. Then we have French flats as also an interesting typology that appears in this neighborhood. And we go over to industrial buildings, who are also a big part of this neighborhood, especially on the western side, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Here we also have a lot of examples. We chose these two as the most representative because we have limited space. The idea is to, again, have people, if they're interested, do a little more research and find more examples. Then we have other churches that are still churches, of course, and Staples as the new public library, and of course the Landmark Tavern, sort of closing up this tour of the neighborhood. It's very short, very sweet. So we originally had one of the conversations that we had with the group was to include a couple of pages with the landmarked buildings that are in this neighborhood. But unfortunately, because of this restrictions of space restrictions and printing requirements, that page had to be left out. That page exists, is there, is I designed it, is there, you have seen it. So it's available. We are figuring out new formats for distributing information. So it might be included in the future. I personally really hope that we get to do this and we get to have it, publish it sooner rather than later, because it's also, like, I think it completes the picture of everything that has been designated versus what is still not designated in the neighborhood, and to the different layers, and to get a better sense of what makes Hell's Kitchen as interesting, as complex as it is.
Great. Angel, can you share screen again for me and go to your second slide, please? So again, I want to thank Angela and the Historic Districts Council for working with us on this, the efforts of many of the committee members on this. And I just want to make two quick points. The first is on, if you can get that slide up for me. We often talk on this committee about preserving the Special Clinton District and the encroachment of development into that district. And if you go to the next slide down, the reviewed sites, just by looking at this map, if you think about where the Special Clinton District is and look at how many sites we considered for this brochure that are within the Special District Clinton, this reinforces our need to protect that district and make sure that it doesn't continue to get encroached upon, that it doesn't get changed, and that helps us understand sort of our objectives as a committee. And the second thing I want to say is to follow up on Angel's point about there are some things that were in here that are in our district that are landmarked that are not included in this, but we almost intentionally did that because there are things in this brochure that we may want to get landmarked, and now we have some reinforcement because it's been highlighted and promoted by the Historic District Council. So that is also sort of a political objective of ours, is some of the determination on the sites that were included and not included. So that is my commentary. If anybody wants to add any more, Joe or Brian.
I just have two questions. Angel, will this brochure be on your website digitally?
Yes, it is available for free downloading on HCC's website, on the 60 Celebrate website. And the little cards have a QR code that is just a direct download for the digital.
So is there a possibility that you could include the page you designed, the designated landmarks on the website in order to make this complete? Because one of the things that we noticed in our poll research is that there are so few designated landmarks. When you look south into Chelsea, there's piles of individual landmarks and historic districts. And I think for us to help us work with this in a public fashion, having that contrast and compare is very helpful. Is there a way just to put up that page in the same area of your website as the brochure? Or to extend the brochure one page somewhere, however, I don't know how you'd like to do it, but something that makes sense.
It is one of my, so we are now actually working on developing new informational material that is more effective on exactly what you're saying, is sort of highlighting the designating deserts that we have, or the contrast of how few landmark buildings are in some areas. So we are working with a couple of people to get what is the best way of making this of making that point. One is, of course, having digital brochures that are different from the printed ones, that are maybe extended versions, and actually what happened with Hell's Kitchen brochure sort of prompted me to think of that, because there was so much that we wanted to include, but there was that the limitation of pages really hurt me on when working with Hell's Kitchen. This was that never happened before. So yes, of course, that is one of the options that we're discussing, is maybe the digital ones need to be different from the printed ones. And they need to include some extra layer that is sort of highlights that. So the contrast between what is designated, what is not, what has been threatened, what has been lost too.
Right. Would it all be helpful if, from my office, I could have my community planner pull together a map of the actual landmarks that would roll over that would show where they are? Would that be a useful document for you to share and to use?
Sure. It can, I'm working on my own map. So anything that can be sort of put together with that map and sort of layered together, it's very helpful.
Yeah, just to help you to help you get there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My dream is to have like a very big, huge map of every site that we have ever highlighted, and sort of pinpoint everything has been designated and everything that is not. So that's this is a little preview of what I want to propose there. So yeah.
Great.
So this reviewed site, is the yellow ones reviewed and the purple ones landmarked?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Or,
No, yellow is considered, purple is included.
okay,
We couldn't fit everything in.
Couldn't fit everything in.
okay, the size, yeah, because I didn't know the difference between the yellow and the purple, it's not really labeled.
No, should describe. All right.
Okay.
I need a little legend here down in my little slide.
You can stop sharing screen if you want. Rachel, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question. Who's our target audience for this brochure, whether the physical or the online? Typically.
Well, this is actually like a walking tour, right?
Right.
But our goal was to get a historic district established in Hell's Kitchen and to really get landmark district established in parts of Hell's Kitchen.
Mhm.
And this was one of our first steps, and the Historic District Council stepped up and actually did a lot of the work with us, reviewing. We had started, when did we start, Jesse? And Ed Kirkland.
This is, well, yes, but I'm saying, I think really where it picked up intensely was we actually funded a
Yes,
study.
study.
We had,
Two studies.
yeah, we funded the study to we hired a landmark historian to review the whole district and provide a report. And, it's on our website, it was years ago, though.
Yeah.
Well, everything got derailed, we were moving it, got derailed by COVID.
Yeah. But we as a board, I mean, have officially submitted that study with a letter of recommendation to LRC, saying we would like them to consider this a designated historic district. Unfortunately, we're not getting a response that we would like, but we should follow up. I guess that's my question is now that we have our report, our letter of support, we have the 6 to Celebrate report and walking toward thing. I think that's what we do with that.
And I think also too, we should know, Rachel, we actually had Tony Robbins propose 2 historic districts.
That's true.
And boundaries, and we went back and forth, that's what was included or not included. And the big thing we learned is that our third district works, it's about a streetscape. So when you walk into a certain area, you feel like you're in a different time and place. And we have Hell's Kitchen North, a Hell's Kitchen, and we have Patty's Market. And he was dead against the Patty's Market one on 9th Avenue, which is the one that actually moved, and it's a state historic, it's a national historic district without the landmarks for protection. But that got picked up, and I think you're right, what do we do next? Because we have this whole report that's been on ice for a while. Where do we work? I mean, maybe we work on it in relation, like there's a Port Authority project happening, right? The different public actions that we want to say, let's get something to happen, our council member, revive this again,
Yeah.
right?
Wasn't that going back to the whole garment district rezoning previous council member? Part of the trade-off was that we were supposed to get a historic district. Out of that, and that never came to fruition. Several things out of that agreement.
That would be a good commitment that we got, yes.
Yeah, commitment.
And they offered us 4 buildings on 8th Avenue that are locked. That was the end of the commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we do I mean, we're very good at walking, we love walking tours. So I mean, I think maybe we do, I mean, it's still nice enough to do it, so we start maybe a walking tour, I don't know, we invite LPC, I don't know, like, we gotta get the,
Well, there's a new commission now. We did this under de Blasio.
that's true,
Wow. So
yeah.
I guess what I was trying to convey with my question was, I think this is great, first of all, and thank you for all the work this committee and HDC has done. I did notice, and I don't know if this was part of the evaluation, but I did notice how diverse the selected sites were in terms of their use, so real kudos to that. I guess my question was coming from the intent of like, what's our strategy and kind of getting this out there. Now that
Let's start to develop it again,
Yeah.
because it's been on ice for a while.
Well, it would be, if you're asking what's our strategy with getting this out to the community, it's more simple, so a broader group of people know about it. I guess my question goes back to the 3x5 cards that you were saying are easy to print up or whatever. Is that something that, you
We have a
know,
bunch already.
already have?
So
enough?
you've seen, yeah.
So
Yeah.
at full board meetings, that stack should be out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But I think to Joe's point, it's a really simpler question, I think, than to the more in-depth answer that you had for us was, can we simply just add in that other page into like when you go on the QR code and you're looking at the brochure, can we add in that additional page that you did that just didn't make the printed version?
That makes the persuasion, this is the district that is so rich. However, here's our report, here's our brochure, and there's 7 landmarks in the whole district. That's really what we have.
Do we have 7? We have that many?
The powerhouse,
The powerhouse and,
the interior, the lobby, the Broad Hill, like it's,
yeah.
it's probably
I think
maybe
it's
6
less, I think it's less, yeah.
in this program.
Right, but just, it's just a page, so we just slug it into the website. We don't have to write anything more about it. Just put the existing.
I will.
And
I will run it by Frampton. I have a meeting with them soon. It might be a good dry run for our coming, like a revised version of the digital versions. That would be a good way of getting him on board with that. We usually don't have a different set because I don't know. I don't know why.
Technology hasn't quite caught up yet.
It is a good way of trying it out, saying like, look, maybe this is a good way of getting more traffic into the website, getting people interested in downloading this one and what usually my argument was, nowadays, why would you have something digital instead of printed if it's the same thing? So there should be a motivation for it, like.
And I would repeat that since the sites were chosen based on the parameters of the printing of this, there is no parameters for digital. So.
Right.
Add more into the digital and make it more robust, that would be very helpful.
I will run it by him as soon as I can and get back to you. I don't think you'll be no, I won't say anything. I won't say anything. It's being recorded. But I will try my best. I hope that he says yes. But it will be a good opportunity. And also we have I know that the program has a set amount of copies that we can give you as a group, but I was also saying to Jesse before that if you want more copies to be printed, we can sort of funnel that. I mean, we can facilitate that with our print. So so just let me know, and I'll put you in touch with them, and because they have the files and they know everything that needs to be done, and it's fairly inexpensive, especially the cards, which is why I made them.
Thank you so much.
Ryan, real quick, when you do speak to Frampton this week, can you just let him know that there is concern about the future of both New Dramatists and St. Benedict's,
Really?
as both sites are up for sale. And there's concern in the community, as we were just discussing.
Benefits is the African American group.
Yeah.
There's already a plan that's already been drawn up to demolish it.
All right, so there we go. So
Oh
And
boy.
they're gonna be putting it over to DOB very soon.
Is it non-profit?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah, and then also New Dramatists is up for sale, so there's concern about the future of that building as well. So just if you could highlight those two for Frampton, and perhaps there's somebody there that could help shepherd any efforts there are to preserve those.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all this terrific work.
No, thank you. It was very, very interesting to do this one. It was a challenge. You have a lot of interesting sites.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence
Happy
Day.
Independence Day.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm fine.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to click back on?
Yeah.
So that people on Zoom can see us better. Thanks. Next item on the agenda is the annual statement of district needs and budget requests. As a reminder, every year we go through this process of submitting what our needs are. The requests we make are based on the issues that we have raised in the past year or many, many years, as some of these cases may be, to try to get city funding to support our efforts. If you look at last year's requests, it's a good foundation to get started. Some of the things last year that we requested are more code enforcement to address our demolition by neglect concerns. We have issues on ADA compliance. Most of the requests that come through land use committee tend to be for Department of Building or for landmark preservation. A lot of them often overlap with housing.
And what's the expense to?
Both housing, both capital and expense. The requests come in two forms, either capital expenditure or think about it, one-time expense, or an ongoing continued expense. An expense is the wrong word there because it's capital versus expense, so that's a little confusing, but there are two types of requests to make. So I'd ask everybody to think about what were the issues that we have tried to tackle in the past year? What are the issues we're going to tackle in the upcoming year? What do we want to see for funding from the city to support our efforts? And again, I recommend looking through last year's requests. Also, I looked through the Chelsea land use requests and I looked through HHHS's requests and sort of think holistically about what the needs are, so that as we prioritize what our requests are, we can bubble up a little bit more and have a stronger argument for presenting our case. At next month's meeting, we will want to have our list finalized for submission. So today is the start of the conversation. So today we can start talking about it. And if there are issues people want to raise, we can start putting it into the format for the formal request. Joe.
So I have a question for Jesse first. On the capital side, we only have three. Sure. On the capital side, we only have three items: the slaughterhouse, Bell Labs Park, and Harborview, right?
Yep.
This is bizarre. The slaughterhouse is an approved dealer.
It's under CS, by the way, too.
Continuing.
Continuing support.
No, I got it. They're all continuing support.
Yeah.
Right? The response is, this request requires further study from the agency. It's
I
an
can't
approved
speak,
dealer.
I can't speak to the response.
Approved by HP.
Yeah.
You know, EDC response, I mean,
This year's responses in general, unfortunately, I mean, if you really wanna like
yeah,
hear about it, talk to Parks, the WPE committee, every Parks request was contact your community board. Like,
the response to us,
The response to the community.
Yeah,
response to the community.
they, I mean, I don't know what happened, but across the board, it just was like that. So I think there are clearly things that we need to follow up with particular agencies. I'm not saying
not this
I'm
one.
not saying that one, but there certainly are other ones that we should. And you typically will write in their response, needs follow-up or needs further study. That to me says, well, I'm gonna track someone down and be like, well, what's going on, but yeah, that should not be the
I'm
response.
just saying on something that like the mayor's multiple agencies supported
Yeah,
should not say requires further study, because in fact, they made allocations already and they're trying to get the project to close.
I agree with you.
Okay, that's just,
What they say versus what we say.
just, no, it's just, but it's absurd.
It's an
absurd.
unforced error. It makes them look silly.
I happens all the time. I put ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, but, yes, I mean, it's like I said, like, there's unfortunately many of them this year that were like that.
Contact you.
So then on the expense side, I read through them.
Again, CB7.
It seems like on the expense side, these are all the same
There's nothing particularly
new.
new that you guys did last year.
We would still support this in the
Yeah,
same.
because actually Bob was kind of, he was spearheading it. There was nothing particularly new, added or taken away, I think, from maybe some shifting of the,
We shifted some of the priorities.
you shifted some of the stuff, but it's all stuff that you guys have been kind of,
Like-
I will say you've been refining the language, which I think is helpful. There's nothing particularly new.
I mean, like the first most important item is getting a system in place to prevent illegal demolition of residential
I think
buildings.
that's what, one of the ones that moved up.
Right,
From where it
like
was.
that's not a big surprise.
Yeah, you should see the number, what number
Yeah,
is
so-
overall.
So for
Next
people
to
who
it.
haven't been through this before, you'll see on here, there's a priority number. So when the full board takes every consideration from every committee, they're ranked. And it starts by saying, these are the priorities: housing, public safety, sanitation, whatever it might be. And then they take all the individual committee requests and sort them into priority order, sort of aligned with the overall general priorities of the board. And then you'll see on here what number they are. And then, so on this list, this is number 6 on the overall board priority, but it's number 1 for this committee. And this is number 2 for our committee, even though it's number 11 for the entire.
Right, so we make our recommendations for each committee, and then there's a reconciliation at the budget task force for voting.
I will say this, not that it's gonna happen this year, but we are, as Manhattan boards, we are pushing for them to change the whole model to but to do it by agents. So we're sending agencies a priority list, so we're not arguing with ourselves that what's number 1 compared to what's number 2. So you guys would be let's say, housing.
That's how it used to be.
Yeah, right, so we would be creating a document that's basically broken down by agency or subject matter, rather than this overall thing where we have to argue about whether more trash baskets is more important than public safety or something along
And
those.
we would have budget consultations with every agency,
I know,
Yeah.
and we sat and talked to them,
yeah,
and they said, oh, really, no, maybe, like, it was like an actual dialogue, working with city government.
Music and power permission.
right,
So given that everybody has this in the Dropbox, everyone can take a look at it. Be prepared for it and watch as this month proceeds. Other committees, we serve on other committees, you'll have all the conversations. Full board will be talking about overall priorities. We can give some thought to what you see as needs for either capital expenditures or for ongoing budget expense items, line items, to put into this so we can prioritize at the budget task force discussions that come up before the full board.
Should we should eliminate the 17th Street building, that's been designated. Correct. Colored school, right?
Yep.
But I'm wondering if we want to, given the information Chris brought up, we have to put it more on here already. Should we seek to do a request for evaluation of the actor studio?
Yeah.
And include that, because we're dropping a building off, include that on, sorry, the dramatists. Dramatists.
Yeah.
Or we expand and do 3 buildings within one line item, which is actors and dramatists and Benedict.
well, you're talking about something else, you're talking about an LPC. review.
We're in LPC.
Yeah, that's okay.
And we have 3 buildings.
We have 3 now.
One is big, one is big.
Okay,
Baby,
Sort of like we drop off
Well,
one,
St.
Benedict. We know it's in danger, let's put it on and then.
So take off public school, add on the dramatist.
Yeah, that's, I think makes sense.
Yeah.
I would argue that St. Benedict's is the one closest to the wrecking ball, right?
No, it's
It still is.
It's still in there.
We've already done an official request for evaluation multiple times.
So there's a 200-year plan. So I'll give you context. There was a conversation that I had privately with a group of people, and somebody had entered a conversation. Seems to be I don't know whether or not they identify themselves as the owner or friend of the owner, but they had blueprints on their phone, showing a complete demolition of St. Benedict's. And that they were looking to negotiate with the community board to break the covenant, the 20-year covenant, and have a community space within their new build. I walked away from that conversation fucking immediately. Because
If it's no longer owned by the Catholic Church, then there's no fear by an administration of designation. So why don't we ask our council member to set up meetings?
it was sold by the Catholic Church to another church.
Yes.
And so
The Catholic Church is the one that are afraid of.
well, from what I understand, the new cardinal is very interested in preserving historic community culture.
Right, the Catholic Church politically is the one that the city government does not designate.
Yes,
They don't care about other faiths.
yeah, because the Catholic Church is no longer the owner, I think we have a better shot.
Right.
So I'm sorry, what's my takeaway?
Takeaway.
What am I supposed to be doing?
Let's contact the city council member and see if we can expedite
Benedict
a discussion about the landmark of St. Benedict's.
In fact, when I was on a walkthrough, public safety walkthrough with Eric. And we both at that time learned that new dramatist was
In play.
in play. He went, oh, I wish I knew we could have helped support them financially and maybe keep them. It wasn't really the focus of the conversation, but I know that he was concerned about their departure and the sale of that building.
So we are on record for a letter asking for the landmarking of St. Benedict's, correct?
Yeah.
So let's do another, get a letter back up to Eric, city councilman, and say, let's revisit it. I mean, let's just.
St. Benedict showed as landmark eligible in 2009 in the Western Rail Yard rezoning, which included the MTA and DEP sites. It showed up as that. We asked for it then. And subsequently, we've asked for it, I think, 3 times.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I mean, is the end all being like, we're meeting with Eric?
It's been with Eric, no, me with Eric and landmarks. To discuss these 2 endangered buildings.
Okay, the only thing I'd go back to the whole budget process is it would be really great also, if the other component of the budget of this is the statement of district needs. And if someone could take a look at the text,
Well, the language.
the language, just to make sure that it is what you guys wanted to say.
Not the whole thing, doesn't.
No, not the whole statement, just the thing about, anything
It's
to
gotta be
do with,
updated.
anything to do with land use, anything to do with housing, it overlaps, but like the way it's broken up is by subject.
Bob has agreed to do that.
Yeah, right,
Thank you,
Bob.
sir. I love
So-
when people raise their hands.
So Bob, so you're hang back this. Oh, man. So the budget task force is gonna meet, right before exec, which is, the 26th, I think.
Yes.
And so, I'm just gonna let them, they usually break it all up as well, so whoever they choose to do that, I will say they should talk to you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Bob. Any other questions or ideas about the budget? Again, next month we'll finalize what we'll submit. So in the ensuing weeks, if you feel like reaching out to me or to Jesse, feel free. And pay attention to each other. I think we're the first committee meeting since this has started.
No,
Oh, same here.
Oh, actually, you guys have moved your meeting, right?
No,
transportation had their.
we couldn't even talk about it because we got.
Way late.
Are the open restaurant studies still a concern, considering there's already a new law going to be passed for them in 2024?
Yeah.
Which is at the last, was that really?
I'm sure what the idea probably
no.
Like I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we might still need monitoring and everything else.
DOT is study.
No, but DOT is gonna need funding to make sure that those stay in line.
No,
Yeah.
they should be funded within the bill itself, right?
Nope.
No?
I doubt it. I
Hello.
doubt it. Anything new?
Have you seen the Office of Cannabis Management? That was.
Yeah.
Party three? Same way.
I still have to do the rule.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's starting.
So no rules.
Actually, probably 2025 at this point.
I thought it was third quarter 24.
It's November 2024 is when they're getting rid of the existing. So I don't even think that they're gonna be addressing it in 2024.
No.
They're not even accepting any new applications.
No, they're not. That's the other.
There's also one component of this, I best understand what we're talking about in terms of budget requests and statement of district needs is for FY 25. Just so we're
Yes.
understanding, so we're all
Starting-
about a whole year.
Starting July 1 of 24.
Yeah,
Half this.
so we're,
But
I don't want people to get like ahead of us.
But I think the legitimate issue is there's gonna be a fee for these curbside
Yeah.
restaurants. And there's probably gonna be no structure of DOT to monitor them to make sure they're staying up to code.
They need to be
applications, and they need to be
Funding
funded
properly staffed in order to provide the service and the monitoring. It's both process applications and to monitor them.
And we shouldn't assume that just because they're collecting the fees, that that's where the money's
Oh,
actually
it
gonna go.
doesn't go there.
No, it's just the general fund.
So general.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't have something to want to say something about it.
But if we do.
Not when they have an agenda with 25 items until 11:30, but maybe next month.
But I think
What?
Ted, it would be good to add that.
Transportation.
They might have to.
And again, when we do, what we do is we put forward our ideas and then the budget task force will sit through and say, okay, this is coming from land use and transportation and BLP. So let's put it into this category. All right, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it because it's a concern to us. Let the budget task force sit through and sort them out and prioritize that. Okay, all right, great. Thank you all very much. The next thing I just want to sort of lead a discussion on future work. We have a lot of issues like this landmarks discussion. We have these discussions that go on month after month, year after year. And I want to see if there are a couple of these issues that maybe someone would want to spearhead tackling and trying to address. I know that with St. Benedict the Moor, we tried to have someone focus on landmarking that and take that as a personal mission, because it does require an Ed Kirkland or an Edward Berman or somebody like that to stay, or who's Eric Washington for the colored school. We need somebody who's very focused in on one thing and say, I will tackle this. Doesn't mean they're doing it by themselves, but they spearhead that effort. So there are a couple of issues I wanted to just raise and see if anybody wants to pick up and continue on with the conversation about that. The landmarking issue we just discussed. This commercial conversion movement from commercial conversion to housing falls across many committees. Last year, Chelsea Land Use Committee had a planning fellow that did a study of the district on appropriate sites for commercial conversions. It was a student, they did a decent job, but the report didn't really go anywhere. There was some missing data in the line, right?
The
But,
report was not even congruent with the
With the
information
housing.
that we had.
Correct. Right. So the question is, do we, as Hell's Kitchen land use, maybe this year, want to apply for a fellow, take the housing plan, take last year's fellows report, and align it into a stronger report and have this board take a position on commercial conversions, as the mayor is now pushing for that agenda. We're seeing those changes to the garment district area, to the Midtown South. The fourth quadrant.
Which
They
is
have, so there's a lot of conversation going on about commercial conversion. Do we want to lead an effort to try to drive that conversation and focus, Chris?
I think we have the obligation to, because that big title that gave neighborhood is Southwest Kitchen, the Garment District. My first year on this committee, we had a very, very long meeting with EDC on Garment District conversion and Garment District preservation. We had letters on that topic already. So it would behoove us to ask for somebody to provide a study for us or a report to us based on previous presentations and currently.
Right, yes, so who wants to do that?
So,
Because
I think,
you know,
I want to pull us back to a little like moment, right? I think we need to focus on things that are gonna come in front of us, right? And we, by the way, are we not gonna mention our briefing on the garment center rezoning tonight? I thought we got that presentation, should we?
The Midtown South mix thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
so, it wasn't on the agenda.
so I think we should report on it. We had an important briefing on it, but the thing that struck me there was that the area that really concerns us, this committee, which is, the Hell's Kitchen, is the 8th Avenue corridor, which is the part of rezoning, right, between 35th and 41st Streets. And then I raised in that meeting, they're paying no attention to the blocks of 35th and 41st between 8th and 9th.
All right, I'm gonna pause you for 1 second,
Right.
because not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Sure.
So just,
You want to do it?
give the report. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. So,
Give the report first. And
so,
then
right, sorry. So last week, right?
last week.
We had a briefing from the Department of City Planning last week, and we don't have that deck to share.
What happened at full board? What was presented at full?
No, it's not.
No, different, it's different.
This is, so, there are 4 locations in Midtown South, well, between 42nd Street, part of it's really more sort of nomad. Where the mayor is proposing to do, and these are zone manufacturing zones. In order to introduce residential use in those manufacturing zones. And the meeting was actually informative and solid, because it was zone by zone. And they said, these 4 zones are different. They have different characters, like, further east, it is more toward the Midtown office district, and there's a very solid occupancy for offices. This location this location that. So it was very good to hear it and to engage. They're also planning some public realm improvements, meaning plazas and things like this that, really expanding sidewalks. And we're talking about the certification of this, it'd be the fall of 24, right?
Yeah, I can pull it up it's on their website. You're gonna pull it.
Yeah, I think we should do it, but it was at least for the first time we heard a nuance concern about something. All right, but they left out a chunk of our district because it's not rezoning, like, right, but it's the same thing. Getting residential use into the commercial area, and that's the mid-block, usually at the 9th. So it just, if you pull it up, it'd be great, if we can just look through it quickly, and it kind of ties into.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
absolutely.
The
The reason I didn't really tie it into this specifically is because for that Midtown South mixed use plan, there's about 10 streets, 1 block wide, that are in our district. Everything else is in community ward 5.
Mhm.
So thank you, Jesse, that's the map.
The next one, Jesse, is the.
I think I happened to click on one of them.
No, you don't actually.
But but you can see in that map, the 4 quadrants that are being considered for the Midtown South mixed use revisions. But note that the Penn Station redevelopment zone in the middle of that, not included. The Hudson Yards,
It's not,
the rest of that,
it's not in the manufacturing. zone.
it's not manufacturing zones, so it's not included. But we, as Joe pointed out,
Because our committee's purview does not have large commercial buildings. They don't exist. It it's manufacturing buildings or law buildings that could be converted that are not permitted now. And the only one that in this map here, if you look at the top, they call that the northwest study area.
The bump out that looks like the trailer extension.
Right, exactly. That is the west side of 8th Avenue between 35th and 41st Streets, where you cannot do any residential use. But we brought to their attention, if you go further west up to just 100 feet short of 9th Avenue, that is zone a C64M, meaning manufacturing use, and you can't convert residential buildings, commercial buildings above a certain square footage. It's more than 100,000 square feet, you can't convert it. Well, that's a problem, because most of the buildings are 200,000 square feet over there. So we asked them to consider actually including that. And I thought that's the kind of discussion that, not at this meeting, but after we can go through this further, and maybe after the October meeting, that we actually get on record saying, include this in your study. Because that's germane.
Do we want to have them come?
Well, we want to have them come, certainly.
Yeah.
So
But I mean-
I'm saying you want to be on record.
But yeah, I think that's a good idea because that's pre-utilized.
Yeah, well, that's the
We can
price.
have the conversation before they.
That's the kind of
formalize
place,
the
right?
application.
Like they said, it's not in the scope, I'm like, it's the same thing, it just got outside into designation. Can you go down further, Jesse, is there something?
Again, it's not the slide deck, it's
It's
just
not the
the,
slide deck.
it's just the
That's it.
presentation. Yeah,
Yes, okay, we saw the whole slide deck, and it was quite interesting. And they talked about specifically where the jobs are, the types of jobs are, like, and the tech jobs, and manufacturing, I mean, it was very, like, and they talked about the ground floor use, and like, it was a very thorough. Other part, which was great, and Brian, you'll appreciate this, is we said we'd like to make sure the Sam Chang effect doesn't happen here. So setback clauses, they're totally aligned with us. Street walls, you know, how do you do it? We talked about height limits, there.
One thing I'm kind of curious about is, are they talking about adaptive reuse on these properties, or are they talking about demolition? Because there have been
We raised
Yeah.
the conversation we had about the garment district zoning text amendment, all those issues we talked about, no demolition, conversion instead, height issues, bulk issues, the MIH factors, all of those things. I said, this has already been discussed in our committee. We have a position.
From 2018.
We gave that to them and said, this is where we stand on these issues. Even if they don't fit into these quadrants, the garment district is very close to us and the issues are almost identical. So we gave them that.
The two issues that we immediately identified were no demolition, it could be straight demolition, and the answer was, the majority of those we're talking about here are built with a bulk.
Right.
So you're not gonna wanna demolish something that is a 18 FAR and a 12 FAR zone, which you're gonna lose square footage. And then the setbacks, is great, we brought the height up, I can bring it up again. The other part is, it's gonna be standard, every conversion will be subject to mandatory inclusionary housing, 30% affordability. Which is what we tried back in 2018, and we were told no.
We tried that last year too.
And we were told no.
Yeah, so they're much more receptive to that now. It was a very positive meeting. So yeah, I think having them come should be a great
Yeah,
idea.
and I'm just saying, I think that should be our thrust for this committee. Let's get that area, as opposed to hotels being built, let's get residential conversions happen there, and then we're gonna get affordable housing too.
are there action items that? I think what Paul's bringing up is there's action items to do as a board with the help of a planner per se.
Yeah.
Planning doing this kind of.
A planner as opposed to abstract in the information they produced in Chelsea, which was not very clear.
I mean, we're going back to the same trial, supposed to be clear, this is the plan from that. I'm getting the plan as it is, so I'm not saying it's the same person.
If I'm just saying this rather, there
Yeah,
is
to
the
enter this kind of
opportunity
situation.
to have a planning fellow, much like Chelsea had last year. There is an opportunity to apply for a fellow, guide them through the process and have them produce a report. And the question I'm asking is, does somebody on this committee want to take the lead on that? Make sure the application gets filed.
I nominate Mr. Brian Weber for this,
Was there a second?
No, but it provides that the scope of work be 8th Avenue, 150 feet. East of 9th Avenue, 35th to 41st. So
I
it's
always
very contained and specific, and they evaluate every building that's commercial use and see what this would, if it was converted, what it would return for housing and affordable housing.
Right.
Like a
So-
very.
How about this? I don't know if Brian has accepted this yet, but what I can do is the proposed, we usually send a page and a half a proposal. If Joe can put together a couple bullet points, I can provide previous proposals. Most of it's probably very similar, which is like work responsibilities, like, that kind of stuff. I will say a great person to talk to who has done a lot of them with previous planning fellows was Betty McIntyre.
Betty's right.
She did ones with the Port Authority planners for years, and so, I will say she'd be a great.
And the board is the board limited to how many of these fellows we can apply?
No, we can apply for, I mean, we might not, I mean.
You don't have to.
But we certainly can get more than one.
Oh, we can.
So if there is another project, let's say, I don't know, whatever it may be, what if there's a certain, anti-demolition, whatever. Again, I agree with the part with Joe about it being, we've got to put very clear boundaries on it.
And they
And you
get
have to
why.
recognize that these are students, they're students from all over the world. So sometimes we're gonna get someone who knows exactly what we're talking about. And sometimes we're gonna get someone
Our
who's like,
practitioners are.
who's very astute, but has not spent a lot of time in New York City.
We have the planners once who said to me, well, we're doing the affordable housing and then you just put the subsidy. I'm like, oh, no, the subsidy.
Yes, right.
But Brian, if you would be willing to at least consider for now, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, say yes right now, but
Well, I'll consider
I would
it.
appreciate
Really
that.
busy trying to get heroin off 36th Street.
This all ties together.
Yeah,
More people, less heroin.
maybe.
Already, more people developed, more people to complain about things.
No, I've already, exactly.
As Barbara Miller points out, the more residents we have, and the more voters we have, the more people, more the
Absolutely.
city council will listen to that.
Absolutely.
So long range.
And I'm one of the few people who lives in this area
that-
that's being studied, so.
Right, so yeah, it'd be great if you would.
Okay.
And, but it does, as has been discussed, I mean, Betty has done it before, and
Right.
it is a commitment, right? Because you then mentor, follow up, work with them.
It's like one step.
Yeah.
How, it's you guys decide on.
We've had this before.
Christine did it too. Yeah, Christine's done it.
Christine has done, Buren did the last one, like, there's a lot of people around it, so.
And then for the demolition, I just think this is more about, not about a study, this is about getting our city council member engaged to bring this to the fore again as to how we.
don't need an intern for that.
Nope.
They don't need what?
An intern for that.
No, I don't think we need an intern, but I think the fellow for the commercial conversion, I think is worthwhile, but to think about what is our plan and what action do we now move forward to address this issue? I know we've tried to get news stories written about this. I know we've tried to have the city council member talk about it. I know we've, but we always seem to be in a more reactionary position.
Maybe today, that I actually wrote the text for this demolition cure like 4 years ago. Like it's crazy. Like we were asked to do it by the Department of City Planning.
So I didn't know that. So if we
wrote it.
Well, let's resuscitate that then.
Well, new mayor, right?
New mayor, new council member,
New chair of city planning.
new chair of city planning.
Potentially new chair for land use in a couple of years as well.
So let's think about,
It's a new mayor this time.
yeah, so I didn't know you had that.
So they asked us to do it.
You say we.
No.
You've been around for 20 years, so we.
No, but the Department of City Planning. Sorry.
Yeah, and it was after the government center. It was after. the government center.
That's what the government says.
But also that would be, I think, something is integrated with HHU tests.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely.
It
It
ties in together. So
So
is
there
there
we go.
somebody else who wants to sort of help do the CPR on that program? Paul who?
Because I think this is such a central thing to how our districts work, Hudson Yards, West Chelsea and.
Well, what's that? I mean, we're requesting it. I mean, Eric wants to meet with us about a lot of different things, so I mean, this is on our agenda, we need to talk to him about, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
Okay.
Right, sure.
So then what's the cure for this? Are we going to appoint somebody or are we just sort of review?
It's fine.
Why don't we set up,
Paul.
yeah, I'll work with Jesse and I, we'll set up a meeting.
They're on.
And we'll set up a meeting with
I'll have to dig out all that
the
stuff.
chairs of the committees and have a conversation with.
You actually reminded me, we actually did this.
Yeah,
God.
all right.
Well, we were actually also, not to tell stories out of school, but when that meeting, we went downtown for that meeting. And someone at DCP literally handed us a piece of paper that said preservation does not equal affordable housing. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
that was a great meeting. The meeting where we were told, are you willing to lift if you're willing to lift the demolition restrictions? You could get a lot more affordable housing in your districts. And they gave us this whole thing. And I took it and went, no.
That goes back to my saying about getting heroin off the streets.
All right,
Okay. That's all I had. Anybody want to bring up old business, new business items?
I got one new business stuff I want to bring back in October.
Okay.
I'm doing research on. That's just two new proposed buildings, one in construction on 9th Avenue, west side between 37th and 38th. Both sides of the Israeli buildings, the little block, remember the horrible block that got demolished over many years?
It's you're talking about on the, West 38th Street.
West side of 9th Avenue,
Yeah.
37 and 38.
yeah.
I know that there was.
It's empty lots. It's empty lots there.
Yeah, so.
No, one is under excavation right now.
Yeah.
Right, so Bob sent to the owner approached the bid, gave us some information. I looked at it, it seems as if, what a shock, the buildings are not in compliance with the special zoning district. They have balconies and projections out beyond the street walls.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've been talking to city planning the last couple of 2 weeks, Andy Cantu, back and forth to determine, is a balcony permitted in a street wall district? Went back and forth, and somebody said, well, I think you need to talk to the Department of Buildings. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I'd like to return to DCP.
So DCP's been approving a lot of Juliet balconies that in Brooklyn and Queens, that I think the buildings are on their line and are going over.
Right, these are not even Juliet balconies, these are balconies.
Wait, this is balconies are gonna be on to 9th Avenue?
Correct.
Have the
Overhanging.
developer ever been on 9th Avenue?
Well, no, has the developer ever built the building with their street wall requirements? But here's DOB's approval of that. So I'm trying to get this back and forth. I'm trying to deal with the land use. So I'm trying to put the information.
So we're having, is the construction reserve needs to develop in this area?
No.
They're excavating.
They're excavating.
They're still, that's been approved.
Plan's been approved, but again,
Hangover like that.
not the first time that,
Is there any way to scuttle the balconies over 9th Avenue?
I just want to say here, not the first time DOB has made a mistake in its approval.
You have plenty of time.
We have a lot of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So I'm
why
sorry.
I wanted to raise it to you to say,
Let's do that.
I'm trying to do the research. I thought I was ready for today, but
So we're putting it on the agenda for next.
could we, and then I can get an actual presentation together, get the text and everything.
Okay, so we'll also have DCP there, hopefully, so.
I'm trying to do that research, so it's, if we do.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've done this before, and we have gotten them to rescind and change. We've done, remember the whole screen wall things in the hotels and whatever,
I can't picture the site off the top of my head. I'll walk by tonight to see it. But I was thinking it was a building and they've already got the balconies.
That's my favorite barbers.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah, okay.
this whole block, this whole block is
It's a smoke shop.
Right, it was 13 tenements that are subject of map of rapid over many years. Vacated, demolished, people absolutely thrown out literally on a Friday afternoon. Been there for 40 to 50 years.
Remember years ago, we just walked by and top had fallen off, and we were like.
Yeah.
We found the back of the building.
Nothing in it. Yeah.
It looks like Miami, basically.
Everything looks like Miami
You
now.
know, the-
Yes, when are we gonna get updates on the current buildings that are being neglected for demo on 47th Street and 48th Street?
46th Street.
You're talking
36th Street.
No, 43 west.
So I have the one that used to be Starbucks on 47th and 9th Avenue on the
361 west.
Fiscal.
361 west, 47.
Yes, there is a building, I believe, not on the city plan that is there as well next to Fountain House. That's just a wood door with people walking in and out randomly, just so you'd walk by and for like, the hell is this? Yeah, I think you looked at the city map.
415 is 47.
No, not 415. This is right next door to where that new art mural is. There is a brownstone right next door to.
Why don't you put together the list of the
Yeah,
addresses?
Okay,
And we've already agreed that Jesse and I are gonna meet with Councilmember Eric Botcher about this demolition by neglect concern. So get me the list before that meeting.
We have four just the.
Is it 340? We have a meeting regularly with the owner of 343 West 47th Street.
Is that continued on?
No, that has stopped. The one next to the Ponte, but I thought they were now foreclosures.
That's right, that's what I last time read as well.
Okay,
Yeah, the four people who are gonna move into that building suddenly are not.
Yeah, now bankrupt.
Right, shocking. But that's on the, that's.
so we still can thank the city of New York who sold the building for $1 to 4 firemen.
Yeah.
Who then resold it 20 years later for quite a profit.
But Dominic, you give me that list and I'll include it in the conversation.
Thank you. I mean, if anything, I want to be part of this conversation because at this point. You know, there's
You
something,
get to the other one, that's,
Invisible.
yeah, I really want to be a part of these conversations. We're talking about poor, it's not like walk alone and it's.
Yeah, why don't you send us
Some list.
some lessons?
Tim? All right,
is there a motion to adjourn?
I hear one second, Butter, and I hear Jesse seconded.
I didn't. All right. You,
No.
no, you don't.
Women do men.
I know.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, those of you attending on Zoom. Have a good evening. Motion adjourned to